Purushottamas and chapter 15, especially Purushottam Yoga. Let's start with some prayers and then we will see. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Apatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So we were discussing yesterday chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled as the Purushottam Yoga. Before we proceed further, I would like to know from you summary of what we discussed yesterday. Just to give you a clue, yesterday we spoke about this verse from Gita Mahatmya. Mala nirmochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine sakrit gita amritasnanam samsara malanasanam. This month is also known as, in some places, some references, as inauspicious month, Malamasa. And this verse composed by Sankaracharya says, one may cleanse himself daily by taking a bath in water. Mala nirmochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine. One may cleanse himself daily by taking a bath in water, but if one takes a bath even once, sakrit gita amritasnanam samsara malanasanam. Even if one takes a bath even once in the sacred Ganges water of Bhagavad Gita, for him the dirt of material life is altogether vanquished. Samsara malanasanam is vanquished. So before we proceed, I want to hear from you. We were there. What did we discuss yesterday? Because sometimes people just come here, something is going on, let's go and hear, but without really being active and fitting in what's going on.
Hey Krishna Prabhuji, may I give some lines?
Only the first verse you can speak.
Yes.
Let's talk about the first verse.
Yes.
Whatever you want to share, you can share.
There is a tree which is the reflection in the water body, and the roots are upwards and the branches are downwards, and the leaves are compared with the Vedic hymens, and the twigs are the sense objects.
No, that didn't come there. The first verse.
First one.
Yes. Twigs are sense objects will come in later. Second verse.
That tree is compared with the reflection in the water body.
What tree is?
Tree is that all about our life. What
Okay.
life?
What tree Krishna says? What is that tree?
Tree is the banyan. It is compared with our life is compared with the banyan tree.
Okay. So the word is aswatha. Aswatham prahuravayam. Okay. Thank you very much, Mataji. Anybody else wants to add anything for first verse? Yeah. That's not there in first verse. Anybody else?
Spoke about who is the Vedavit,
Okay.
who knows the Vedas, and he has spoke about those 205 specific branches downward, Ashvatam banyan tree, Avyayam, eternal. We spoke about how Avyayam is eternal,
Imperishable.
imperishable.
Indestructible.
Sandam says the Vedic hymns. And then he also mentioned reference to seed-giving father.
Aham bija pradapita.
And one more, Chaturshloki was
Aham sarvasya prabhavo. Mutta sarvam.
both of them have reference to seed-giving father, or I am the origin of
Everything. Okay. Good points are covered here. Anybody else wants to try online? See, you see, there is a.
There is one more point, Prabhu.
Go ahead.
So it's also mentioned that one who knows about this tree, which is compared with banyan tree, is also knows the knower of the Vedas.
Yastam Veda Saveda Bit. Yeah, he becomes a knower of Vedas. Anything else?
That's
Okay. You see, there is, let's say there is a person who knows about geometry and he has been invited to speak on geometry. Now, he can speak at various levels based on the students whom he is addressing. If you prefer to remain quiet, often it gives an indication that probably you have not understood. Or we don't know, right? You know, when silent is like I was doing something differently yesterday, trying to break down the verses and understand these verses more closely. But whether you got that, you didn't get that, whether you are scared of the verses, or you prefer not going into the verses, I have no idea. So one way is to ask questions, what people know, and based on that we should speak. Because I may be thinking I'm talking to advanced level students, whereas the students are in preliminary level. So there is all those kind of confusion there. Anybody else, anything that was mentioned in the first verse, anybody wants to speak?
When compared with the banyan tree, that is compared with the desires, because the banyan tree.
What is desire? What is compared with desire?
The roots.
No. What is compared with desire? Anybody else?
the water body in the right, Prabhu, where we have the perfect reflection of that. The water body is a kind of a desire. Where
the water, which is reflection.
Yeah. Okay. So see, this
The
is
leaves
what
are the karma kanda.
Yeah. The leaves are the karma kanda. Oh, can you
That's
complete
all.
that?
The leaves are the karma kanda.
Yeah.
No, that's all. That's all I want to say. Leaves are karma kanda.
Yeah.
and controlled by 3 modes of material nature.
That will come later. That will come in the next verse. So, Jitendra Prabhu, you are saying something, but you're on mute. Or you are speaking, we are not able to hear you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
No, we can hear. We can hear you, Mother. I'm saying Jitendra Prabhu. His lips are moving. I'm not able to. Can't hear you. Still not audible. When did it come? First verse. Where? Where is Vishaya? There is Vishaya in the first verse. It'll come in the second verse. It'll come in the second verse.
So the other point is to cut off the desires.
Desire is not mentioned in the first verse. Jitendra Prabhu, you want to say something? You were saying something. No. Okay. Anybody wants to say what is there in the second verse, which we discussed yesterday?
So, one more thing in the first verse, which you had mentioned, was the fact that the banyan tree was avyayam. It is eternal.
Somebody mentioned, didn't stress that, but that's a very important characteristic of that tree, that it is imperishable, indestructible, and eternal. Okay, second verse. Can someone who has not spoken try?
Yeah, in the second words, Prabhu, it's also said that tree has the roots downwards.
Roots downward.
Yeah, tree
No.
also has the root going down, and which is represents the fruitive activities.
No, there is no roots going downwards. The branches are going upward and downward. That roots going down, which is there.
The tree has the roots on the side.
Huh? Tree has?
So the picture shows the roots
There's
going
no
down
root
upward
going down.
and the branches downward also.
Okay. Okay, continue. Continue, bro.
Yeah, the roots that are going down are represents the fruitive activities.
Okay.
So we need to cut that.
How will you cut? Why will you have to cut? What nourishes the branches? What is the connection between first and second? These are all questions anybody can grab. Vibhu, you were there yesterday.
It is nourished by three modes of material nature. The banyan tree is nourished by three modes.
Okay, good.
And the twigs are actually objects of the senses.
Okay.
And actually the branches, actually the banyan tree is also having the roots actually developed from the branches. So that roots is actually going down, and that is nothing but our fruitive actions. So due to this fruitive actions, we are going to bind by the material, like bind by our fruitive actions. And actually the real root is from Brahmaloka, and actually we want to enjoy the results. So this is the main thing, that we always want to enjoy the fruits. So that's why we are going to be bound again and again in our on fruitive activities. Like we want to get promotion, we want to get money, we want to get children, we want to get opulences. So these things are coming one by one, one by one, one by one, and we are getting entangled into this.
Hmm. Okay. Yes,
Yes,
Chandraprabha Mataji, you want to say something?
yes, the branches are going in all the directions.
Hmm.
And Vishay Pravala means that sense objects which are having unlimited desires, like what tree is nourished by watering. So all branches are influenced by the three moods of material nature, and and there is no beginning and no end. And Sampratishta means that
That is no. That is not coming now. That will come in the next verse.
Vishay Pravala, and it has
No,
this
the beginning and
no
yeah.
beginning, and there
No
is
beginning,
no.
no end will come in the next verse. Okay.
Prabhuji, you have also explained triple A. So
Today I
first
didn't
A
explain.
is
No. That was today in the morning.
okay. That is also missing.
If you hear too much, also there will be indigestion. Then diarrhea will happen. And some are just mute spectators. They think some entertainment will happen. Let's go entertain. So that says where we are, and then see, you didn't even say whether, the going by the verse phrase was good, bad, what it is. So it is very difficult to know what the whole idea is, there is a tremendous significance and importance of chanting this entire 15th chapter, Purushottama Yoga, in this Purushottama Mass. But we are just there as passive people, doing multiple things and trying to also hear an hour. In that also we have deficit of attention. Or we don't say that, okay, no, this probably is not working out, then very difficult to know. Let me quickly go and tell what we did yesterday. So we had this verse. Then I gave some references for Krishna being the root of everything. And we spoke about this verse in a great detail. Who is Vedavit? Because people question, what about Vedas? Why you are not reading when Prabhupada begins the purport? What about Vedas? So Krishna says he is Vedavit. He is a knower of Veda. Vit is a knower, Veda, knower of Vedas. Who? Yastam Veda Savedavit. He who knows the following things. What are those? Urdhvamulam, Adha Shakam, Aswatham, Avyayam, Chandamsi Yasya Parnami. And a very important word which was used by Krishna was Prahur. Aswatham, Prahur, Avyayam. Prahur means this is said. It's not Krishna saying. He's saying this is said. Urdhvamulam, who knows about Urdhvamulam, Adha Shakam, Aswatham. Why Aswatham? We say that. We saw that yesterday. Avyayam, this is imperishable, indestructible, eternal tree. Chandamsi Yasya Parnani. Yastam Veda Savedavit. So we will not find such tree in the material world whose roots are upwards and whose branches are going downwards. And it is an imperishable, indestructible tree whose leaves represent the Karmakandya portion. Chandamsi Yasya Parnani. Yastam Veda Savedavit. But that's why we have to see the commentaries of Acharyas. So Yastam Veda, just, you hear this theoretically, that there is a tree whose roots are upwards, whose branches are coming downwards, and the leaves which represent Vedic hymns. Knowing that is not becoming Vedavit. We have to understand the imports of the Acharyas who are explaining this. I think today morning I was telling someone when he was asking a question, just because we know English doesn't mean that we will understand everything in medicine or in medicinal science or in engineering for that matter, because we know English and it is written in English. No, or just because there is a X-ray which is done for our bodily part, and the doctor is showing this is the lungs X-ray, and he's showing it. I can see that my lung is there, but what is wrong in that? Unless the doctor says, I'll not understand. So unless we hear the imports and the purports of the verse from our acharyas, we will not understand what this verse is. What is this inverted banyan tree? So Prabhupada explains this is a reflection. Reflection, if you see a reflection of a tree, you will see that the tree's roots are upwards and the branches are downwards. There are leaves also in that tree. This tree represents the material world, our existence in this material world. And it is indestructible, unlike the material things which are always destroyed. This is indestructible. And then he goes on to speak about the second verse. We spoke about all these things in yesterday's verse. Adhaschordham prashratas tasya sakha guna prabruddha vishaya pravalaha adhascha mulani anusantatani karmanu bandhini manusya loke. I had warned yesterday that don't get confused by these roots going downwards. It is not referring to the roots going downwards, but you still read the translation again and you said that. Actually, it is saying mulani is the root cause. What is the root cause of it is the branches which are going up and down. Prasritas adhascha urdhvam. So the branches of this tree are going upwards and downwards. Forget about the roots which is mentioned in the first verse. There is no mention of the roots here is not meant to confuse. There is no roots which is going downwards. Tasya sakha guna prabruddha. The sakha, the branches get nourished by guna prabruddha. These words are very, very powerful. If it is indestructible, what is it that is sustaining this tree? How a new branch in a tree comes out? How does a new leaves sprout? How does it happen? So here it is mentioned guna prabruddha. Bruddha is briddhi, increases. Guna prabruddha. Prabruddha. It actually expands. The branches of this tree expands by guna, by the watering of these three modes of material nature, triguna. Guna prabruddha. Vishaya pravalaha. Vishaya pravalaha is all our desires. Desires to enjoy, desires to remain here in this material world and make arrangements and make some alterations. Unlimited desires. Vishaya pravalaha. And prasritas, these branches are too extended. They are not like little here and there. Far and wide. Prasritas. So guna prabruddha, vishaya pravalaha, prasritas, adhascha urdhvam. And there were two words which are used by Krishna. Tasya mulani adhcha anusantatani karmanubandhini manusya loke. Adhcha anusantatani, it extends, it drags the existence of a person in this material world. Inside this tree it remains. Starting from Brahma to the lowest insect, everybody is conditioned. Either you can go upwards, urdhvam or ardham in the branches. You can, so going down is getting birth in the lower species of lives. Karmanu bandhini manusya loke. In whatever way we are doing work, it is actually bandhini. It is binding us in this material world. So I was telling yesterday, yagyarthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. 3rd chapter, 9th verse of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, yagyarthat karmano, who do work as sacrifice for Vishnu, as work for pleasing Vishnu. Yagyarthat karmano. Work should be done for the pleasure of Vishnu. Otherwise, yagyarthat karmano anyatra lokayam karma bandhana. The word bandhana there also comes. Otherwise, the work binds us to this material world. Tadartham karma kaunteya. He's telling that's how you should work. It is not only pleasing Krishna, it also opens the doors of elevation. Tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. The doors of liberation gets opened by that. Then we saw how this guna prabruddha, this guna is such a powerful thing, and how upwards and downward movements happen. That is given in Bhagavad Gita by 2 verses. This 13.22. Purusha prakriti sthohi bhunte prakritir jan gunan karanam guna sangasya sad asad yoni janmasu. Karanam guna sangasya. You see there are this word used, karanam guna sangasya. Guna sangha. When we come, we don't have a choice. When we take birth in this material world, when we come to this Purushaha Prakriti Sthohi, when the Purusha, the soul, becomes fixed, situated in Prakriti, in material nature, he automatically comes under the influence of three modes of material nature. Karanam, and that becomes the cause of his taking birth in Sad Asad Yoni Janmasu. Which Yoni he will take birth is dependent upon which mode he is associating with. Karanam Guna Sangasya Sad Asad Yoni Janmasu. Interestingly, the Yoni of Manusya is called the Karma Yoni, where human life is like a junction where one can elevate oneself to the upper planetary system, or one can degrade oneself to the lower planetary system, or one can come out of this entire cycle of birth and death. So it is called Karma Yoni because every action has a reaction. And there is a Bhoga Yoni, like these animals and the demigods. Laws of karma do not work upon them. So like an animal, when there is a signal, if it crosses the signal, the traffic police will not go behind that animal to give him some ticket or charge some penalty. It's not applicable. But for human beings, they're responsible. They're supposed to follow the laws of nature, and if they don't, they get punished. Or if they do a lot of pious activities, then they get elevated. That is what is mentioned in this 14th chapter verse, where it is mentioned, Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha, madhye tishtanti rajasaha, jaganya gunavrittistha, adho gachanti tamasaha. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha, a person who is fixed in the mode of goodness elevates himself to upwards to the higher planetary system. Urdhvam gachanti sattvastha. Madhye tishtanti rajasa. The people who are associating with the modes of passion remain in this middle planetary system. Madhye tishtanti. Jaganya gunavrittistha adho gachanti tamasa. Who are doing all kinds of abominable, sinful activities. No understanding of scriptural injunctions. They don't care. Irresponsible life. Adho gachanti tamasa. There is a verse in 16th chapter, if you know. That verse is Yasastra vidhim utsrajya vartate kama karataha nasa siddhim avapnoti nasantim na param nasukham na paramgatim. Yasastra vidhim utsrajya, who does work, anybody who is doing work, utsrajya, giving up all the scriptural injunctions. I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, I don't need to care for anything. Yasastra vidhim utsrajya vartate kama karataha, who does work like that, nasa siddhim avapnoti, doesn't get any perfection in this human form of life. Nasukham na paramgati, neither he gets happiness nor paramgati. He rather degrades himself. Krishna actually puts him in Shipanti, in very, in abominable species of life, he's put into that kind of a situation. Then the third verse, I didn't ask you, I got a sense how much you got. But these first two verses are so important for understanding what Krishna is trying to say in this third verse, because third verse onwards there is solution, there is a technique which is given, there is some clue, hint given by the Lord himself. How do we come out of this imperishable banyan tree, this material existence which seems endless? Because one life is finished, based on the desire and guna pravruddha, I get another body, and I continue in this perpetual existence. How do I come out of it? That is mentioned in this third verse. Narupam asyeha tatopalabhyate nanto nachadir nacha sampratishtha aswatham enam subirudha moolam asanga sastrena dridhena chitva. So I had told Narupam asyeha tatopalabhyate, the rupam, the form of these trees cannot be perceived. Na rupam asya iha tathopa labhyate. So labhyate is upalabhyate is translated by Prabhupada as cannot be perceived. This where did we come from? Since when we are here? How did we come here? Very difficult to find out. Na rupam asya iha tathopa upalabhyate. Why? Because there is no end, na anta, nacha adir, nacha sampratishtha. There is no end, there is no beginning, and where it is located, this tree, we don't know. but yet we are stuck in that. So what should we do? Aswatham enam subirudha moolam, and the roots of these trees are so deep rooted. Subirudha moolam. That is why the word used here is chitva. Chitva means it cannot be uprooted because it is very deep rooted. Subirudha moolam. Cut it. And how do you cut it? Asanga sastrena dridhena chitva. The weapon of detachment, asanga sastrena, and dridhena, dridha, determination. Dridhena is translated by Prabhupada as strong. So the weapon has to be really strong. And what is that dridha means? Dridhata means what? What is that determination? Determination that I am not this body. Determination in having faith in the injunctions of Krishna, in the words of Bhagavad Gita. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityu jatasya cha. Jatasya hi dhruva mrityu jatasya cha. So anybody who has taken birth has to die. This body has to perish. Everything material will come to an end one day. But the soul is imperishable. There is another thing which is existing, which is imperishable, and it accepts different bodies. That dridhena, that dridhata is required. The determination, that the firmness. Asanga sastrena dridhena chitva. That's what we saw yesterday till whatever we discussed. What I'll do today is, so this is another reference which I had given, that this material existence, it is telling nanto nacha adir nacha sampratishtha. We cannot find out the end, the beginning, or where it is located. Whereas if you see Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, aham atma gudakesha sarva bhutasaya stitaha aham adischa madhyam cha bhutanam anta eva cha. Aham adischa madhyam cha bhutanam anta eva cha. I am the beginning, I am the middle, and I am the end of everything. So what we will do is, because I just got a sense of where we are, I probably was guessing something like this. We will just chant the 15th chapter verses, all the 20 verses. You want to chant, you can chant, on mute yourself, because this is very, very nice to chant on this month of Purushottama. People chant, they take some vratas. Chanting 15th chapter, it's only 20 verses. There are only 2 chapters in Bhagavad Gita which has got the least number of verses, 12th and 15th. Both have got 20 verses. So at least one chapter will not take much time to chant these verses. We will chant, and then we will see we will have some discussion based on whatever time we will have. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Bhagavan Vacha
Urdhamulam Adha Shakham Aswatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Saveda Ved Adhaschordham Prashrutas Tasya Sakha Guna Prabruddha Vishaya Pravala Adhascha Mulani Anusantatani Karmanubandhini Manusya Loke Narupamasyeha Tathopalabhyate Nanto Nachadir Nacha Sampratishtha Aswathamenam Subirudha Moolam Asanga Sastrena Dridhena Chitva Tatah Padam Tatah Param Tat Parimargitavyam Tatah Padam Tat Parimargitavyam Yasmin Gatana Nivartanti Bhuyaha Tameva Chadyam Purusham Prapadye यतः प्रवृत्तिः प्रसृता पुराणी निर्माणमोहाजितसङ्गदोषा अध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृत्तकामः द्वन्द्वैर्विमुक्ता सुखदुःखसंज्ञैर् गच्छन्ति अमूढा पदमव्ययं तत् न तद्भासयते सूर्यो न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम ममैवांसो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातनः मनः षष्ठानि इन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति शरीरं यद् अवाप्नोति यच्चापि उत्क्रमातीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायोर्गन्धानि वासयात् श्रोत्रं चक्षुस्पर्शनं च रसनं ग्रहणम् एव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयानुपसेवते उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितं वापि भुञ्जानं वा गुणान्वितं विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः यतन्तो योगिनश्चैनं पश्यन्ति आत्मनि अवस्थितम् यतन्तोऽपि अकृतमानो नैनं पश्यन्ति अचेतसः यदादित्यगतं तेजो जगद्भासयतेऽखिलम् यच्चन्द्रमासि यच्चाग्नौ तत्तेजो विधिमामकम् गामाविश्य च भूतानि धारयामि अहम् ओजसा पुष्णामि चौषधी सर्वाः सोम भूत्वा रसात्मकः अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रितः प्राणापानसंयुक्तः पचामि अन्नं चतुर्विधम् सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्तः स्मृतिर्ज्ञानमपोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृत् वेदविद् एव चाहम् द्वौ इमौ पुरुषौ लोके क्षरश्चाक्षर एव च क्षरः सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थोऽक्षर उच्यते उत्तमः पुरुषस्त्व अन्यः परमात्मेति उदारतः यो लोकत्रयमाविश्य विवर्ति अव्यय ईश्वरः यस्मात्क्षरमतीतोऽहम् अक्षरादपि चोत्तमः अतोऽस्मि लोके वेदे च प्रतीतः पुरुषोत्तमः Yo mam evam asammudho janati Purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata iti guhyam tamam sastram idam muktam maya nagah etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. So we finished the 20 slokas of 15th chapter. We will read the translation also. The blessed Lord said, there is a banyan tree which has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows the tree is the knower of the Vedas. Anybody wants to read the second verse?
Branches of this tree extend downward and upward, narrate the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive actions of the human society.
Okay.
The real form of this tree cannot be perceived. No one can understand where it is or where its foundation is. But with determination and must cut down this tree for the time of detachment. So doing, one must seek that place from which, having once gone, one never returns. There surrender to that supreme personality of God, in whom everything has begun, in whom everything is already since time.
So, one who is free from illusion, false prestige, false association, who understands the eternal, who is done with material lust, and is freed from the duality of happiness and distress, and one who knows how to surrender unto the Supreme Person attains to that eternal kingdom.
That abode, that abode is that abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by electricity. One who reaches it never returns to this material world.
Okay. I have two people here. Let them finish here and then I'll ask online.
The living entity in the material world carries the different conceptions of life from one body to another as the air carries aromas.
Okay. Can you, okay. Who wants to, you can chant.
Yes, Prabhuji. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, tongue, and nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects.
The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this.
The endeavoring transcendentalist who is
You
situated
chanted
in
no once. You chanted no.
oh,
Okay. Yeah.
The
No,
endeavoring transcendentalist who is situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to.
The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me.
I enter into each planet, and my energy, they stay in the orbit. I become the moon, and I thereby supply the juice of life to all the vegetables.
I am the fire of digestion.
Shray, not audible.
I am the fire of digestion in every.
Only the fire is coming.
Somebody else can go
Huh?
Can
Only
you hear me?
no, I heard only I'm the fire.
Somebody else can go ahead.
No. Sorry, you try. You try.
I am the fire of digestion.
I don't know if I'm only hearing I'm the fire, or others are also hearing the same. I don't know.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay. So Shreya, you to adjust something. Maybe somebody else can try.
I am the fire of digestion in every living body, and I am the air of life, outgoing and incoming, by which I digest the four kinds of foodstuff.
I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, am I to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas.
Okay, I have to go and. Okay.
There are two classes of beings, fallible and the infallible. The material world, every entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every entity is called infallible.
Besides these two, there is a greatest living personality, the Lord Himself, who has entered into these worlds and is maintaining them.
Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person.
We have two verses and two Matajis. Shailaja Mataji and Rima Mataji. One of you can go.
Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is understood as the knower of everything, and he therefore engages himself in devotional service, O son of Bharata.
This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scripture, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection.
Perfect. Okay, so what we will do is, I just want to give you an overview of the chapter, which will help you understand what this chapter is all about. Of course, I was doing yesterday a more in-depth study, but if you know this, at least if somebody asks what is the chapter 15th, Purushottama Yoga, what can you summarize the chapter? Then if you remember this 4 letters, home, you will be able to give a summary of this chapter, which is not enough, but at least it will help to remember the concepts discussed in this chapter. So to know this well, or to understand what this home represent, actually the H home, it stands for home or hotel. So imagine someone checks into their holiday hotel room and then begins painting the walls, buying new furniture, refitting the bathroom, and hanging up family pictures. It sounds really, stupid. Nobody makes such arrangements for long-term comfort in a temporary residence. This world is like that hotel room within which people make complicated plans for security and enjoyment. In chapter 15, Krishna uses a wonderful analogy to create detachment within the spiritualist and fuel his desire to re-enter his real home in the spiritual realm. So that is the first H, which stands for whether it is home or hotel. Making all those elaborate arrangements in this place which is temporary is like decorating the hotel room for a permanent settlement. That is how very nicely Krishna actually mentions, just as a banyan tree has a reflection in water, the spiritual world also has its reflection. The reflection of the spiritual world is called the material world. While they may look similar from a distance, the spiritual world is where reality, substance, and true satisfaction is found. On the other hand, the reflected tree of the material world is complicated, intricate, and completely topsy-turvy, since the roots are upwards and the branches downwards. Bird-like individuals frantically search for juicy fruits on the reflected tree, but the substance which brings satisfaction seems to be lacking. Krishna urges the reader to cut down this illusory tree with the weapon of detachment and end the futile endeavors for permanent fulfillment in the temporary phantasmagoria. These are all very heavy words. That's how Krishna uses this. Otherwise, like, Mrigatrishna, like this mirage, we're constantly running to get happiness, satisfaction, enjoyment, and we are constantly being baffled, and our attempts are only extending our existence in this material world. So Krishna is telling that, see, like a shadow doesn't have any substance. Shadow is there because there is a real object which is getting reflected, and there is the shadow. So similarly, this material world is a perverted reflection of the actual spiritual world, and the description of the spiritual world is given. We will see whatever time we have today. So this is the second section. This is the first section of this chapter, home or hotel, and it is from 1st to 5th verse. Somebody who does not care about this, he says, I just don't care. I will do whatever I like. Then Krishna talks about the second section, on and on, over and over again. Again and again one is trying. So what happens here? Krishna then gives a glimpse of the spiritual world, showing how its nature is perfect, complete, and fully satisfying to all. The first time in Bhagavad Gita, in brief, in nutshell, Krishna talks about the spiritual world. Not in a very great length, not in a very elaborate way, but he does talk about a spiritual world which exists, which is beyond this material realm. He gives a glimpse of that. Once having gone there, one never returns to this world. Here in the material realm, an individual hops from tree to tree, acquiring various material bodies based on the worldly desires they cultivate throughout life. At the time of death, through the subtle workings of reincarnation, one receives a body which is tailor-made to facilitate such desires. Man proposes, God disposes. Thus, different life situations are meant to teach us simple lesson. We are looking for the right thing, which is happiness, but we are looking in the wrong places. So this is from 6 to 11. Actually, so powerful these verses are 6 to 11, which we read. I don't know how many of you realized, but very profound, very deep, these verses. Very powerful analogies are given by Krishna to awaken us, to make us realize how futile this attempt and how we are missing it. Even though this whole thing is happening around us every day, every single moment, we still are not able to perceive this. And how one can perceive that. This is the second section. The third section is, if you still do not know or understand, who is the real maintainer, who's the real maintainer of things around us, of our own bodies, then Krishna says in this section, third section, maintainer of the body, mind, soul, from verses 12 to 15, saying that one who is entangled within the reflected tree of material existence can develop his Krishna consciousness by appreciating Krishna as the maintainer on all levels. Krishna maintains our gross physical body by arranging fundamental resources that provide the energy of life. He also maintains our subtle capacities by facilitating knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And finally, perhaps most importantly, Krishna maintains our spirituality by offering ways and means to achieve self-realization and escape the dangerous cycle of repeated birth and death. Very wonderful section, including some small things like, the food that we are eating. How does that food get digested? Do we ensure when the food is gone in our mouth that there should be some acid, or there should be some, saliva which should get mixed in the right proportion, in the right amount, so that the food gets digested? And once the food is digested, the energy, the good parts of that food should be taken by the body and should be distributed to all bodily parts, and the remaining things should go out. How does this happen? This looks like as if it is happening automatically, but Krishna says, Aham Vaiswanara, I am that fire of digestion in the body, to digest the body inside the body. There is a oven which is required. There is something which is required to break it down, to make it, to convert it to energy. And that fire inside our belly is Krishna. These are many subtle things which he says. How wonderfully he describes that, this whole gigantic planets which are floating in the sky. How are they floating? If I ask you, can you make this object float? This is a book. Can you make it float? You may say yes. And you have to do very complicated arrangement and work against the laws of gravity and other laws to make this object float in the air. But there are gigantic masses like these planets, earths, moons, and then there are stars. All of them are floating. How is it happening? Krishna says it is by my energy that they are sustaining. They are being floated there. Like that, he talks about how he is the maintainer of both body, mind, soul, not just both, all body, mind, soul, and other material things, material world. Then the last section, he actually talks about the essence of the Vedas in 3 verses. We have heard about the Chatushloki Bhagavad Gita in the 10th chapter. Here he is telling about the essence of Vedas in 3 verses. Previously, Krishna summarized in Bhagavad Gita in 4 verses, and now he again summarizes the teachings in 3 verses. There he talks about fallible living entities, kshara, have dropped into the tree of material existence due to an independent desire to enjoy. There are different, so these are different from infallible living entities. He talks about 2 kinds of classifications, kshara and akshara. There are different forms, so they are different from the infallible living entities who never leave the spiritual realm due to their undeviated desire to be with the Lord. So beyond both these entities is the Supreme Lord. He is neither fallible nor infallible. He is different. And beyond both these entities is the Supreme Lord. Thus, in yet another passage, Krishna reinforces that the living entity never becomes God, since even liberated souls have their separate identity in the spiritual world. Actually, this particular section is something which is used by Madhvacharya to defeat the Mayavadis. These 3 essence of Vedic literature. Very powerful, very direct, very important to pay attention to each and every word in this Bhagavad Gita. First of all, it is summary. It is called Gita-Upanishad. It is a summary of the entire Vedic literature, spoken in a very crisp, in a brief, in an abridged way by the Lord, giving the essence of the Vedas. In that also we try to not even focus or try to see some summary of summary of summary of summary. Where will we end? So this is what this chapter all about. We've almost reached the end of the time, but then I just want you to remember this one line from the purport of 15.6, 6th verse of 15th chapter, where Prabhupada is saying one should be captivated by this information. He is referring to the information about the spiritual world. If you search for this line, you will find it, 15.6. One should be captivated by this information. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. One should be captivated. Actually, we are captivated by so many things in this world. Some new movie comes with some high sci-fi effects, then we get enamored. There is a new mobile which comes with some new features, we get attracted. Something comes, we get enamored by that, we get captivated by that. Krishna is saying, hear the description of the spiritual world and be captivated by this. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. Actually, if you want to know more information about the spiritual world, you should go to 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 15th chapter. The chapter itself is entitled as the Kingdom of God. Wonderful description about the spiritual world is given. It is not that it is not there on what are we doing, where are we going. Beautiful description, such wonderful description. To conclude our time together, I thought taking a verse from that 3rd canto, 15th chapter. This is spoken by Brahma. Forget about the verse, what it is. Just read the translation. how Brahma is lamenting, is regretting. What is Brahma's lamentation and regret? What is he regretting? He's saying it is very much regrettable that unfortunate people do not discuss the description of the Vaikuntha planets, but engage in topics which are unworthy to hear and which bewilder one's intelligence. So he's telling it is regrettable and it is so unfortunate that people do not discuss about the description of the Vaikuntha planets, but engage in topics which are unworthy to hear and which bewilder one's intelligence. Those who give up the topics of Vaikuntha and take to talk of the material world are thrown into the darkest region of ignorance. This chapter talks about a destination, about a spiritual destination, about a spiritual world which is eternal. And it also talks about the process of going there. It talks about who are the types of living entities who are permanently there in material world, who are permanently there in spiritual world. How we can make ourselves eligible to go to that spiritual world. And if we don't take up this knowledge, how lifetime after lifetime we are wasting our life in this material world, and how we don't realize that we are wasting. These are some of the things which are described in this chapter. I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments.
Prabhuji, I have one question. 3 shloki verses are 16, 17 and 18?
Yes, you're right.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Let me ask you, so if we deep dive like what we did yesterday, those verses, is that helpful? Will that be making sense, or Sanskrit is too much to digest? We don't want to go that route, just hear whatever Prabhupada is saying.
Yesterday was very helpful.
One saying helpful. How many found it not helpful? Or was difficult, or it's not easy to follow? See, I said silence can be construed in different ways. So silence means when it's a question which is... Yeah, go ahead.
So Prabhuji, it was really helpful because then the words stay with you throughout the day. Like asang sastrena dridena chitva, that stayed with me.
Nice. Okay, good. Yeah, I did 3. Okay. So one suggestion here is to do 2 verses, not more than that, if we do deep dive. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yesterday you have explained that sometimes the attachment is too deep, so it cannot be uprooted. So we have to cut it. So we have to cut it means we have to dridha. We have to become dridha, and we have to become determination.
So that question. Okay. Finish your question.
Yeah, so actually we have to first thing we have to be firm determination, and so that we have to achieve. There is no other way. We have to achieve.
You're repeating the statements of Krishna in the second verse. Is that what it is? Or?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, the dridhena is determination that is required. But probably I was asking more of the approach that we took yesterday. Was that something which we should continue, or we should change, should do something differently, is what I was trying to find out.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jitendra.
Yeah, Prabhuji. This approach is actually really we have to follow, because we are just reading the verses, but we are not understanding completely.
So,
Yes,
so
Sanjay.
yes,
Go
Prabhu.
ahead.
So we have to understand in the deep why this statement has been said and why and what is the explanation Prabhupada has given. So we have to understand very, very clearly.
Go ahead, Ankit.
Yes, Prabhuji. Like, yeah, approach is good only, but people like me, I'm having difficulty in reading Sanskrit. So whenever I'm reading Bhagavad Gita as well, so whatever possible I'm trying to read. Otherwise, there is a explanation over there, right? So I go by that. So I think the way you are doing that is correct only, but good only. But the only thing is, like, people like it's very hard to digest Sanskrit actually.
Yeah. Don't first of all, don't get intimidated or scared by Sanskrit. If you, then you can never understand the scriptures. And Prabhupada so brilliantly and so wonderfully has given this word-to-word meaning. And then the translation and purport. Actually, our job is very easy if we just follow. There is that fear or a phobia that I don't know or I've not read. It's not justified actually. But I'll keep the whatever you said. I'll keep it in mind. Yes, Lakshman, go.
Yeah, the also other thing, good thing is probably we were explaining also bringing all the related references from different verses from that's very useful, Prabhu, to the context a lot of times, not just only the main things, and that was I found very helpful with.
So should we have next week Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or do you think we should have regular sessions?
Prabhuji, I prefer Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, great.
Prabhuji, I want every day.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else? So it's still 1-1.
So I feel everyday sessions will be more useful, Prabhu. We'll be more in touch and more discuss more. But
Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji, I agree. And daily it should be there.
You'll come here and then diarrhea will happen.
Although it's
Yes,
very,
Prabhuji.
very,
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Prabhuji. We cannot say that one day we will stop and another day. So I want every day, Prabhuji.
Chandraprabha, you were saying something?
we want to take bath every day.
Nobody is saying that don't take, please take. But see, the point is, so much of hearing, so much of this thing, we should also, internalize few of the things. We should also try to understand, when we ask questions, the level of questions, I'm not saying, we can see where are the doubts and what we are asking, what we are trying to understand. So probably what we will do is next week, certainly Friday and Saturday, we will have this 15th chapter continuation. I gave a summary. We did the first 3 verses. We did a deep dive. Next Friday, Saturday, we will have the remaining 17 verses we will complete. We will try to understand. So wonderful these verses are actually. 15th chapter is one of the best chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Every chapter is good. And then Sunday, we will have a quiz. Sunday will be a test. And if in that test, you don't do well, right? You don't perform, then don't say, Prabhuji, every day you should have sessions. You lose the right. So Friday and Saturday you have to hear, and whatever you heard yesterday and today, whatever we discussed, and based on the next Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there will be a quiz. What will be the format? What it is going to be? It will be all based on 15th chapter. There will not be any sloka recitation. You don't have to memorize any sloka, but you have to memorize the concepts which are given in that. So individually you have to answer. The questions will be sent and you have to answer how it will happen, what will happen. I'll share the details more. But if you fail, if majority fails in that, then don't ask anything that should be done every day or anything should be like it should be done. That's not. We never had tests. We never had any kind of exercise where we are evaluating what we are learning. So, and that is also a very important thing. Otherwise, ठीक है, चलो चलो वो लोग बोलेंगे कुछ तो बैठेंगे उधर and we'll सुनेंगे. That's not how it is done. So Friday, Saturday is going to be very crucial. You have to hear with attention, and you have to pass on Sunday. Those people who fail, we will see something we have to do about them. In between the week, one day we will have for Goswamis, and one day we will have for Goswamis. So we will have this week 4 sessions. One session on Goswami, and your job in this month of whatever the remaining days of Purushottama Mas to read that 15th chapter well. As I said, there is just 20 verses in that. But very, very nice, very powerful verses. Read the purports, try to understand. There's nothing, the beneficiaries are all of us when we read more, when we go deep and try to understand. So let's do that. And we will just share the poster when the next Goswami session is going to be. And Friday, Saturday, Sunday is going to be on 15th chapter. Is that okay? Right. So before we close, can I request all of you to come in front of your camera and raise your hands and chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की
जय,
जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद
की जय,
जय गौ प्रेमानंदे
हरि
हरे हरे. Thank you all for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Right.